right, everybody, welcome back to the OffBeat Sports Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, as today we're joined by former member of the Boston Red Sox, Big East Rookie of the Year, Big East Player of the Year, Providence Male Athlete of the Year, and current sports analyst who can be heard at 93.7 WEEI on OMF, Lou Merloni. Thanks for coming to join us, man. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, boys. This is pretty cool. You look like you guys are having fun.
Oh, yeah. So what have you been up to? How's quarantine been going for you?
Yeah, it's not fun. You know what it is? It's kind of like trying to get used to it, trying to sort of fill the days. I got a 10-year-old son. I'm trying to keep off Fortnite. And as far as what I do for a living, and that would be talk sports on a radio, it's kind of tough when there's no sports. So it's been interesting. I think like most people, we're kind of waiting. Hopefully we don't go backwards. We keep going forwards. We see sports soon. It gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
How's like WEEI? Is like you guys kind of like just panicking trying to find like
you guys must be throwing stuff in the air at this point.
Yeah, you know, it's been strange because it always seems to be something to talk about. You know, when this thing started, I remember just having cold sweats at night thinking, what are we going to do? You know, once Tom Brady, that drama of him, is he going to leave? Once he left and we were a week or two out of it, you know, what could we possibly be talking about then with no sports?
Yeah, you had like the draft and a lot of things, but
yeah, and we're here, but I don't know. You find stuff every day.
Mm-hmm. So, first question for you, Lou.
Yeah.
On May 15th, 1998, you stood at the plate in Fenway Park for the first time. 3 balls, 2 strikes on the board. 27-year-old rookie, hometown kid. In the face of your first opportunity, what's going through your mind?
Well, you know, it was actually, I got called up in Kansas City, played my first game there, went to Minnesota, got my first hit in the big league. So it's like, you know, I had 4, 5, 6 days playing a couple games, and then we returned home to Boston. So it gave a lot of my friends and family time to kind of prepare for it, get tickets, and be there. So it was definitely special that even though you'd played a couple games in the big leagues, to be back at Fenway Park in your first game. One of the benefits I had actually was the first guy I ever faced in the big league was Jose Rosado in Kansas City. He happened to pitch that night in Boston. So it was, you know, a guy that I had already seen in 2 or 3 at-bats, knew a little bit more about him, had seen him a little bit. That made me feel a little bit more comfortable, but a lot of nerves, you know, wanting to play in that field ever since I was a little kid, to know everybody that was in the stands and trying to block that out. Hit the home run. I don't know how the hell it happened, to be honest with you. And it was like a blur so long ago.
I mean, you kept the streak going for a while after the first one, so.
Well, that first one meant so much to me. I didn't want to hit another one for a couple of years, which is pretty much what happened because I wasn't much of a power guy.
How did it impact you personally when Providence cut their baseball program?
I hated it. You know, when you play sports for a living, like every single stop you make means a lot to you. You know, it especially with where you get to at a big league level or just in life. I had so many great memories at Providence College and being part of something, and it was a very good program when we got there. Our junior year, winning the Big East, going to a regional, and just sort of trying our best to show people that here at Providence College we can still play baseball at a very high level. Well, there was a lot of pride in that, and you know, you meet so many friends and people that I am still friends with today. I mean, I still have threads of 20 people, you know, 25, 30 people who I still talk to currently, who I went to college with, Nick, as you know, with your dad as well. And then to see the program having success the years after I left was something you were very proud of. And for them to drop that program, it hurt. You felt like somebody just took something from you. And you're thinking, okay, I'm never going to forgive them for doing that. And it's taken a while, you know, to kind of get back into the pride of it, you know, the pride of Providence College, and feel prideful about the school. But I just had so many great memories. I don't think I'll always love my time at Providence College, but it hurt when they got rid of it.
Yeah.
What was your favorite experience at Providence? Do you have any like a favorite memory or like something you did there?
Yeah, well, I think for me it was, you know, I had my guys on my team. Was probably the most special time, you know, playing baseball, traveling. I also had a group of friends that weren't baseball players, so that I had lived with. So it was sort of 2 separate friends. But I do remember not just the guys off the field who I was friends with and roomed with, but the times playing baseball. I think going to that regional at LSU and traveling as a team and being part of that and playing LSU in front of a crowd that we had never seen before under lights that we hadn't played yet because we don't play under lights. That experience alone, winning the Big East tournament that season and going to a regional was probably one of the greatest memories I had.
What was it like being drafted by Lou Gorman?
Yeah, it was first off, it was great to be drafted. My junior year, I was drafted in the 36th round. I went back to school, got drafted in the 10th by the Red Sox again, both times. So, being part of that Lou Gorman draft, and then when things sort of took over and you almost felt like you weren't part of the new regime because you were drafted by the old regime. And, in the minor leagues, a lot of guys maybe felt like you were treated differently. But for me, none of that really mattered. I mean, I was playing pro ball. It was now up to me to show them I could play no matter who was running the team at that time.
How would you say your time as a player translated to your career now as an analyst and a media member?
Well, I've always felt like for me being like the utility guy, like I got to see the perspective of the game from a bunch of different positions, second base, third base, shortstop. When I went to Cleveland, I played first base a lot. I spent some time in the outfield. So seeing the game from all different perspectives. And I think as a hitter, you always play that game back and forth with pitchers as far as pitch sequences. So I just think playing everywhere. I know I was a utility guy, I played once a week, but I always was trying to stay in the game, follow the game, almost manage the game as it was going on. So for me, that perspective, I think, has always helped be able to see the whole game, not just from a hitter or pitcher's perspective. And obviously my career helped me kind of be where I am today, got my foot in the door as far as being able to be on TV, being on radio and talking about the game of baseball. So, the career is just a short part of your life, and what it sets up after life is kind of where you are now. So obviously very grateful for all that.
What was it like to start a playoff game in the place of Nomar?
Yeah, that was very nerve-wracking. That was 99 ALDS against the Cleveland Indians. And if you go back and look at that lineup, I mean, it was just Hall of Fame up and down. I mean, that was an offensive juggernaut on that baseball team. And we knew after game two, or at least I knew, guys in the team knew, that Nomar wasn't going to be able to play. The wrist was acting up. He needed a shot in his wrist. And he was going to need to miss one game because there was a day off in between to be ready to go game 4. We were down 0-2 coming back to Fenway Park. And I remember during BP, a lot of the guys in the Indians, I mean, you're talking about Manny Ramirez, Jim Thome, Omar Vizquel, Robbie Alomar. I mean, it's just, Lofton. It was unbelievable. They're saying, you're playing short today, huh? Nobody knew that Nomar wasn't playing, but I knew the night before. So it was nerve-wracking. I didn't really tell anybody the night before when I found out because I didn't want friends or family to be, stressed out over it. I figured they'll figure it out before the game starts. But luckily, we pulled away in that game and made my life easier, and I just sort of passed the baton so Nomar could play the rest.
Could you tell us a little bit about that brawl where you protected Pedro Martinez against the Devil Rays?
Yeah, and so I was at third base. Gerald Williams was up at the plate, and Pedro's on the mound. Your ears are always up. Your eyes are always open because sometimes he would drill guys once in a while, and you always kind of have to be careful and see what their reaction is because Pedro's the money. You got to protect the money. So I really started, Pedro was watching Gerald Williams, but after a while he took his eye off him. But I was sort of when he hit him, you sort of, as a player, you just sort of creep in, right? Like you started walking towards home plate or the pitcher's mound, and I just kept an eye on Gerald Williams. When he took off, I took off. And I was able to kind of get in there right away. Unfortunately for me, Tech came from the other side, from the catcher position, and tackled Gerald and I. So as I hit Gerald, Tech tackled both of us. I end up in the bottom of the pile. Dabra comes in, drops a knee in the back of my head. Next thing you know, I have a concussion. So after about an inning or so, I start seeing stars. I actually saw the rest of that game at a local hospital because of the concussion I had. So I watched Pedro's almost no-hitter from a hospital. So it was a memorable night. There's no question about it.
So we have some sports questions, just current day, what's going on right now for you. So
recently you wrote an open letter to baseball. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe why you decided to write it?
Because I'm getting frustrated with both sides, this feeling of sort of needing to win. And I know they're very competitive. Nobody wants to give an inch. But I almost feel like both sides now need to step outside their circle, listen to people who aren't constantly discussing the debate between owners and players, and hear what the fans are talking about. And what the fans are talking about is we need the game of baseball back. You got to be back before the other sports. If they came back early July, they would have 2 or 3 weeks all to themselves, games every single night. That's what's best for the game. Your CBA is down the road. You're about a year and a half dealing with that, or a year away. Deal with that then. Do what's best for the game and come back.
Yeah, they keep going at it like it's the CBA now, which is the problem. They're structuring for later rather than now. And it's crazy because now MLS is talking about coming back for Major League Baseball. That's absurd.
Yeah. It's not good. You guys are seeing the ratings, like NASCAR ratings are through the roof. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they're playing golf. The ratings are through the roof. Baseball would get more eyeballs on if they could just figure this thing out. And it's just getting to the point where nobody wants to hear about it anymore.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They need it too. Like their audience is not getting any younger. Like the more eyes they can get on their sport, the better. But they just refuse to get a deal done. It's absurd. Just like listening to the things they say. It's like, read the room. Like everyone's finding a way. Just agree to something and just get back on the field. It'll only benefit their sport.
Yeah, I do think the players got to get off the whole March 26th agreement too. You know, this idea, this is how we interpret it. Okay, the owners interpret it differently. It's like, just don't dig your heels in right now. Give back a little bit. Give back a little bit more for both sides to get the game back.
Yeah.
As like a former replacement player yourself, do you think the MLB should consider bringing in replacement players this season if they can't reach an agreement soon?
No, because I don't want them to do what they did to me. You know, I was a minor leaguer. I wasn't supposed to be involved in all that. They brought in replacement players. And about a week into it, they saw the level of play. They started calling minor leaguers. They weren't touching guys in the first round, second round, third round. They're touching guys like me in the 10th round that, you know, I had 1 year in a minor league system. And they would say, listen, you're going to play in this games. We want you to play in this games. And if you say no, you're going to release you. And they put me, they put others in awful spots. I went up there for one game after talking with friends and family. You know, you play one game in it. I faked an injury in my quad. I got out of there. I didn't accept any kind of money. I viewed it. I could sleep at night like a minor leaguer, get called up to a big league game. It happens all the time. And unfortunately, I paid the price because of those 3 at-bats for the rest of my career, as of, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 other guys that got to the big league. So that whole thing was an absolute mess. I was never supposed to be involved. None of minor leaguers were. I hope they don't put those kids in that same spot because it's not fair to them.
I think, just like what we were talking about a minute ago with the whole thing with Major League Baseball, I don't understand why they can't get out of their own way. Because before they had it in writing that if there was no fans, they were going to be able to renegotiate. And so now it's like you can't even agree to what you already agreed to. Like, I don't understand that. I don't, all the other leagues are finding ways to do it. Obviously, they have a really strong, ML, like their Players Association is really, really good. Like the union there is one of the best in the world, honestly, for getting what they want. But at the same time, you need to give a little to get a little. And they don't really want to do that. They talked about the expanded playoff, but their main goal seems to be just money. Like at the end of the day, they just want the salary. So
yeah, that's frustrating. Is that you had this agreement March 26th. We are almost 3 months later, whatever it might be, and you still really neither side knows what the hell that meeting was all about. Neither side understands what the other was trying to say. So I mean, you had 3 months to figure this thing out. They should have been ready to go a week ago. They should have been ready to go 10 days ago. That when the smoke clears and they're allowed to go to spring training, all this should have been done. But they waited to the very last minute, and here they are. You had 3 months to figure out what you guys meant in that March 26th meeting or letter or whatever it might be, and they still don't know. They still don't.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm getting really fed up with both sides because I get that the owners need to kind of make sure they're making money, but also if they don't have the season this year, they may never recover in the future. So,
yeah, and I side with the players. Listen, I don't know if I ever trust the owners how much money they make or how much money they don't make. All I do know is that the last 4 or 5 years, revenues have gone up in the game of baseball. Franchises have escalated as far as value goes. And when it comes to players' salary in total, they have not gone up at all. They have actually stayed even the last 3 or 4 or 5 years when the revenue of the game has gone up. So they've profited very well the last 4 or 5 years. If 1 year they take a little bit more hit than they're comfortable with, so be it in my mind.
I have a separate question. You mentioned salary, and it's something I heard the other day, and I've just been thinking about. So Mookie Betts is going to hit free agency, and he was expecting a bag. He was going to get a lot of money. But because of the financial situation, he's most likely going to get a lot less than that and possibly closer to what the Red Sox initially offered him. Do you think they could come back at him with the same thing when he hits free agency?
I don't think they will, because I think Mookie is smart enough not to sign that long-term deal this offseason. And I think that's what you're going to see from a lot of these guys is that, try to get that one-year deal, try to get the game financially back to the point where you can get that kind of money. So I don't think he would get into a long-term deal right now, because I don't think that money's going to be there this offseason. This game has taken too much of a hit for an owners in this offseason to say, okay, Mookie Betts, George Springer, another guy, like, hey, let's give you 12 years at $400 million or 10 years at $300 million. I just don't see that happening. So I would expect those guys to do a one-year deal and try to see where the game is and the market is the following year.
Well, I think both sides need to kind of just like – where I feel like the love of baseball, like within the players, is not as strong as like athletes of another sport. Like basketball, they were just like, all right, I want to play. I want to get back out there. So, like, whatever we got to do, let's do it. Well, like, baseball's in this huge, like, argument about it. Like, you should love the game enough that you don't need – or, like, I get, like, why they are, but, like – and I think the owners should just – I also think the owners need to let up a little bit. But, like, I feel like the love of the game's not as strong as in other sports, which is kind of aggravating.
Well, the big problem is that everything's made too public. I mean, they're telling us everything they're feeling. I don't know if you guys saw today. I know the NBA is talking about, they seem to have this perfect setup, and they're going to go down to Orlando. And then Adrian Wojnarowski, who covers the NBA, comes out and says, well, there's still a dozen players or so, a fraction of players that don't want to come back and play under these circumstances. So, but they've done a better job of keeping that quiet. The NHL, we don't even know what's going on in the NHL. Hell, they just came back today. They're skating across the street over here. Nobody even knows because they're keeping it private. They're just going about their business. And when they start, right? MLB, every single emotion you're seeing played out in the media, and I think it's killing them.
Because you got players on, like, Twitch.
Yeah, you got all these guys talking out. Like, you don't hear, all these guys talking negative in most of the other sports. Like, you definitely hear, like, certain things, but it's like, I don't understand why they can't just, like, I agree with you. They can't just keep their mouth shut. Like, why? Like, I understand people want to know the drama because it's a great thing to report on. It's a great way to get news. It's content. But why give them that content? Why not just figuring it out within your sport?
Because you'd probably have a better chance of getting your way if you're not, like, whining about it publicly. Because then, like, people are just like, quit whining. Like, I don't want to hear that Twitch stream.
Yeah. My opinion, it's because they don't get it. They actually feel like they're negotiating through the media. They're actually like trying to get people on their side. Well, if I tell them that this reporter that I think it's an unfair deal, then people will see that it's an unfair deal. And they don't understand that that's not what people are saying. What they're saying is, you're just bitching about this and I don't want to hear it right now. So it's just not a smart approach. So
something I was thinking about, baseball and, like, in itself, the product of baseball is complained about heavily, like where it's come, like just the game in general when you watch it. And I feel like the players don't really realize that, and they think they're just like the best still, and everyone's like just so, encapsulated by the baseball. It's not like what it used to be. The TV ratings have dropped significantly over the past, 10 or so years. Like, specific parts of the viewership have gone down. Yes, the revenues have gone up, but it doesn't really show the true, interest in the game. And I feel like they don't get that. I feel like they still think they're like the top dogs of, like, American sports, where I don't really think they are even close to that anymore, but they still hold themselves to, like, this higher standard above, these other leagues, as if, like, they deserve better. Like, our Players Association, we're going to get exactly what we want. It's like, why don't you know what I mean? Like, you're not that much bigger than any of these other sports anymore. Like, the NBA is catching up if they're not bigger.
And I agree. And I think that goes into, the lack of change in the sport. I don't think anybody understands why there isn't a pitch clock. I mean, one thing with quarantine is we've seen when they replay all these games and all these different sports, and I've seen a few of these baseball games, back in the 70s, 80s, whatever it might be, and you watch the game and you're wondering if it's actually edited. If they're taking out time in between the pitcher, throwing the ball and the next pitch, and they're not editing it. It's just that's the way the game was played. The guy grabbed the ball and threw the ball. and it was so much more action. So the lack of change in the sport sometimes I think frustrates it. And you're right. I think a lot of them look at it and say, we don't need to change because the sport is great. And it's not. The games are too long.
And I don't watch a whole lot of baseball myself, and making it like a 4-hour game, that sure as hell doesn't make me want to go watch a 4-hour game. Like that's not entertaining for me to sit and watch a 4-hour like baseball game. If it was like even if it was probably down to like even 3, or I'd watch it more. Like 4-hour game's insane.
It is, and they don't realize that the times are changing. I mean, you guys know. I mean, hell, I mean, you can watch a game, from a tablet or whatever it might be, and the next thing you know, after you're just getting bored, you want to go do something else. There's more things to do. When I was young, video games weren't really a thing. They were just kind of coming out, and nobody was really into them. There's just more stuff going on. Where the people today, and I'm not just talking about kids in middle school, high school, college, I'm talking post-grad, people in their mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s. They've grown up with other things going on, other ways to watch, and they don't grasp that.
It's just the league as a whole doesn't do itself any help. Like, they don't market their players the right way, I feel like. Like, I'm not going to call myself the biggest baseball fan in the world because I'm not even close. And I'm sure Nick could name more of these guys than I could, but if you think about I bet you most just casual baseball fans couldn't name you like the all-stars from the 2 all-star teams like last year. Like there's just, you don't know who certain guys are. You wouldn't know that these guys are even as good as they are because they're just not marketed. You wouldn't even know. Whereas in the other sports, it's like, who everyone is, even if they're not. So even if they're not as good, but.
Yeah, no, it's a huge complaint. I think within the game, you got a guy like Mike Trout. Nobody really knows much about him. The best player in the game, I don't know how many people know what his number is. And I don't think you can say that about the best players in other sports. It's tough, but you got to get these guys too willing to do it. As great of a player as Mookie Betts is and Mike Trout, these guys, I don't know if they want to be out there. A lot of these guys I just want to play the game. I just want to play the game that I love. I can make some money, and that's about it. The other stuff I don't need in my life.
Yeah, and people who are like even like buying jerseys or something, like when you're watching NBA, you're like, all right, I want to go get that guy's jersey. MLB, it's like, who the hell do I buy? Like, it's not like there's anybody special that I'm like, all right, I know a lot about this guy. He's awesome. I want his jersey. When I know I could name a lot about like Steph Curry or LeBron. I know way too much about their lives. Like, I don't know anything about those players, baseball players.
So, they don't market the players.
Nick, me and you were talking before about something with Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling thing, but I don't remember what you said. What was the question that we were?
If you were an NFL team who needs a quarterback such as the Patriots, would you go after Kaepernick? Not necessarily because of what's happening, just because of from a football standpoint, would you go after him?
Well, I think, we brought this up the other day, and I actually said yes. And it's not because of symbolism. It's not because you sit there and say, you blackballed them years ago. I just don't like the Patriots quarterbacks. I don't know what Stidham is. He could be good. I'm just not drinking the Kool-Aid. We'll see. I know what Brian Hoyer is. And then there's the other side of it is that I feel like I just want someone to give Colin Kaepernick an opportunity to play for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't know if he wants to play or if he would rather not play in the game, and it's better for his brand. So if somebody offers him a job and he refuses, then you could sort of say, okay, maybe he just doesn't want to play football anymore. Plus, I want to see if he's any good. Because I don't know if 4 or 5 years, 6 years down the road, if we're still going to be talking about, this team should sign Colin Kaepernick. I mean, we're 3 years out. I don't know if he can play anymore. I don't know if he wants to play. So I think I'd like to see a team give him an opportunity for those reasons. See if he wants to play. See if he's any good. We all know that he's been better than some of the backups in the league before. We all know that the league sort of kept him out. They blackballed him. But it's a lot to take on for a guy that you expect to be a backup quarterback, I think, for a lot of these teams, and they shied away from him. So, listen, if he has an opportunity this year, I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Yeah, I think definitely, especially like when this happened the first time, he should have gotten a job. But now that he's been out for 3 years, I don't know if he can still perform. But just like I mean, even as the Patriots, there are other guys you can go after too, like Cam Newton, if you're not comfortable with Stidham, which I think they are. But I don't think Stidham is going to be anything that great.
Well, like whoever
Yeah,
signs
Stidham-
Kaepernick is gonna get. I think they're gonna get a lot of good press too because of what's going on.
Watch it be the
Yeah,
Cowboys.
yeah. And they would, and that's the thing. Like Belichick, if of anybody, can handle distractions. And really, if he's not any good at all, to me, Belichick is one of the guys that could actually cut Colin Kaepernick and actually deal with the aftermath. And just because the way he handles everything. But I'm with you, Nick. You know, I don't know. I've never seen so many. It's a guy like Jared Stidham get so many accolades for basically taking good batting practice.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about him. We don't know if he's any good. Looking at college tape, he could be a very good player. I just wish they had a better backup behind him in Hoyer, but we'll see how it plays up. Makes for an interesting season.
So
Yeah.
with the whole thing behind Kaepernick and the whole kneeling situation, it's definitely going to happen in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a high chance it's going to go to the other sports like the MLB. What do you think the league's response to that happening in Major League Baseball is going to be?
Well, I think at this point, I think all leagues would recognize that if their players feel the need and passionate about kneeling because they don't like what's going on in their country, I think all the leagues will stand by them. I think you will see more kneeling in the NFL. To me, that was like the controversy of the Drew Brees stuff wasn't about how he feels about the flag. I think a lot of people are sitting there saying, just please recognize why I kneel. You know, realize why I'm doing it.
It was
you can
because
still
he called them
stand.
disrespectful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, listen, you can still stand. I'm going to kneel. Just respect why I'm kneeling. To me, the interesting thing would be come down to Roger Goodell. If it does affect the dollars, if it does, affect the back pocket, because they lost some money. They felt like they lost some money years ago through it all, what he does. But I think you're going to see it in the league. And I think most leagues will sit there and they'll say, you know what, we understand. Do what you think is best.
Well, I think this time they won't lose as much money because I think it's so big right now that I think them doing it's going to be like I think people are going to actually understand it now.
If I'm the league,
especially after what Drew Brees said, I would assume that most people watching football will actually get the general understanding of why they're kneeling. So I think you'll get better feedback.
If I'm the leagues, I'm marketing this now. Like these players that are standing out and these players that are talking out about these things, rather than try and hide them like the NFL is doing for a long time, especially with Kaepernick. I'm marketing these guys now because they're going to bring in so much more attention because everyone's seeing them as doing really good things for a community, which is exactly what you want.
But that's not why they should be marketing it.
No. I'm just saying, but if they were worried about money in any case of that, it's really the opposite. Because if you can get those guys out there and you have them talking more and you give them their opinion and they can bring an influence, a positive influence on their communities, that looks so much better for your league rather than trying to hide these guys and then get them basically, blackball out of your league like Kaepernick. Because that looks horrible for the NFL.
I think the NFL should be helping. I think the NFL should definitely be helping to provide help to their cause by either promoting them or promoting what they're doing. Or even donating themselves for those the videos by the NFL players they posted that I think they're definitely treating it better than they did the first time, but I still think there's a lot.
Yeah, but I mean also when this first happened in 2016, a lot of people were against it, but now I feel like everyone's kind of changed sides and now they can really.
I think now they truly
they can
what it was.
Yeah.
Well, I think too back with that when Kaepernick did it, there was a threat at some point of say sponsors, right, threatening the NFL.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a sponsor right now that I could think of that would ever think of threatening the NFL for people kneeling because that company would look bad, right?
I think Goodell sent out
Goodell sent
out a message to all the teams you'll lose 20% of your season ticket holders or something like that if you sign Kaepernick.
Well, I tell you, one thing I don't think will change, the ratings will be interesting because there will be some people in this country that will just sit there and say, you know what, I can't support kneeling. I don't want to watch. I'm not watching the games this weekend. So I'm not so sure that'll change, but I agree with you, Nick. I do think if it was if it was 50-50, just to simplify it, that 50% of people were against it, 50% of the people supported it. It's definitely gone more on the support side. I think what you'll see this fall.
What about this? Why don't you just stop playing the national anthem at sporting events unless it's the championship or an important game? Why don't you just stop playing it?
Yes, I don't want them to stop playing the anthem? I think the answer is you play the anthem like they did prior to 2009 while the players are still in the locker room. And then when the teams come out in the field, at that point, you've eliminated the disrespecting of the flag to some. Now the anthem starts, and then when you're back on the field, that's when, as a team, I think, because people aren't worried about disrespecting a flag anymore, what it means to them. It's not personal. As a team, you can then take a knee, maybe when the captain's around the field flipping the coin or whatever it might be. Maybe it's a moment of silence, whatever it is. So they could do the anthem still, maybe just while they're in the locker room, and then come out in the field and show some sort of
and I don't even
unity.
And I don't think that if somebody's not watching a football game because they don't think people should be kneeling, then why are they like that? That's a terrible. I think personally, I think that's a terrible reason not to watch a football game, like because you don't agree with somebody kneeling during an anthem. Like you're watching football. You don't like that's pregame. That's not like I don't know. I think that's kind of a stretch, but
yeah.
All right, so with that just about wraps up this episode of the OffBeat Sports Podcast. I want to thank Lou for coming to talk with us. You can hear him on 93.7 OMF weekdays. And thanks so much for coming to talk with us. We really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, boys. Thanks for having me, man. Good luck with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to watch our other videos.
Be sure to like and subscribe.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at offbeat_sports.